Hello, ladies and gentlemen, to my probably fifth and final sorting tutorial. And the other four tutorial I've done is merge, selection, insertion, and bubble. And this tutorial, this sort is called a quick sort, and as the name implies, it is quicker than most sorts. So you have like an array of 100 elements. Quick sorting the array would be quicker than if you were to sort it using insertion, bubble, selection, and yeah. But I think quick and merge, I think quick is a little bit faster than merge, but I think that's up to your opinions. So without further ado, that's the background. Without further ado, we shall sort this array. So right here I have an 8 element array. And the element array is 4, 6, 9, queen, 7, 2, jack, 10. Alright. So we good for now. This is unsorted. This is our unsorted array. And when I sort it, the left hand side, so right here, would be our least array. Would be our smallest element, I mean. The right hand side will be our greatest element. So now we want to consider these three variables. This is what makes quicksort different from other sort. I mean, I guess you could have variables for other sort, but like for this, like the variables are like almost needed. I have something called a pivot. I have a variable that I name I. It doesn't matter about the naming. You could name it whatever you want. And I have a variable named J, and again you can name it at whatever you want. And now to begin quick sorting, we need a pivot. We need to pick a car as a pivot, and the car we pick is usually in the middle of the array, or as close as the middle as it can be, because this is even. There's no exact middle, so I'll pick queen as my pivot, just at the middle. And quicksort is a little bit more complicated than the other sort to get, so just stick with me here. Thank you. Okay, so now I will place it at our left. It doesn't matter, J could be left, like it could switch around, but I'll just place I as left and J. And now what I and J is, I will go through all of this and J will go through all of this, and J, the element that's pointing to, like J is pointing to 10 right now, J has to be always greater than a pivot. And if it doesn't, an error, not an error, a thing occur that you guys will see. So, and vice versa, I has to be less than the pivot. And these two variables try to go to the pivot at the same time. So, then the pivot will be locked in if I and J are both at the pivot at the same time. And I and J, when they reach to the pivot, they stop. The pivot is like a paradise for them. They stop there. Okay, so now let's see this in action. I is pointing to 4 right now. 4 is less than queen, so I checks out. It's good. J and 10. J, 10. 10 is smaller than queen. So we have a problem. We don't move J. J stops for now. So we just loop through. I, 6, yes. 9, okay, 9 is less than queen, yes. Now I is at the pivot. Now since J has stopped and I is at the pivot, both element has stopped, we have to switch these two cards, the queen and the 10. But be careful when switching. Pivots never change. If you assign a card of a pivot, it's pivot all the way through this run. And I and J doesn't switch with. So I'm gonna switch it right now. So queen and 10 switch places. So 10 is now in the 4th element. You're right. And now pivot. Okay, so the pivot never changed. So pivot is still queen. And J is still here. J doesn't switch with the pivot or the queen. And 10 is I is now 10. I is pointing to 10. So now it loops through again because J is now at the pivot. J is now at the pivot, so it stops. So now I. 7, yes. 2, yes. 2 is less than queen. Jack is less than queen. Now we have reached this, this glorious thing that I and J is now at the pivot at the same time. So now queen is locked in. Queen, we know definitely has to be here. It is the greatest element in our array because it was the farmost right here. So its position is locked in. That's now we have two arrays. We have this array, this still unsorted array, 4, 6, 9, 10, 7, 2, jack, and we have one more array, the sorted array, which we will add elements in as we go. Queen. And now, so do the process again. Now our minimum element appears to be 10, so I'm gonna pick 10 as my pivot. I, J. And I'm gonna just run through this real quick. 4 is less than 10, yes. 6 is less than 10, yes. 9 is less than 10, yes. Pivot, I is now at the pivot, so I stops. So let's check out J. Okay, jack is greater than 10, so we move on. Oops, problem. Just like our queen problem. So now J has to stop because 2 is less than 10. And since I has already stopped since it's at the pivot, we have to switch 10 and 2 together. So I'm going to switch. And remember, the pivots never change. And these variables doesn't go like, doesn't switch along. So now since we switch 10 and 2, we switch the position of 10 and 2, I is now pointing to 2. And J is now at the pivot. So J is good. J stays. I is at 2. So 2 is less than 10. Yes. 7. Yes. I and J, we have reached our glorious order again. So now now 10 is locked in. 10 goes here with the queen in the array, in the sorted array. And now we still have an element missing here. Remember that. And now since 10 is gone, we now have 3 arrays. So we have an array, 4, 6, 9, 2, 7. We have a jack array. We have an array with only jack in it. And we have our sorted array, 10 and queen. So I'm going to tackle this array, this lone array first, because it's easiest. Because when an element is in a single array, like an array only contains one element, that element is sorted, which makes sense. Because if you were trying to sort one element and the array only has like one element, which was 2, 2 is sorted. So we just do it right here. Oh, J, we pick our pivot. There was only one. There's only one choice. So pivot goes to J. I goes to J. And J goes to J. So J is now locked in. So J moves to our sorted array. And we know that J is greater than 10. So there. So we just compare J is greater than 10. So, and queen is the greatest. We already determined that. So J goes there. So now we tackle this array. And now we do the same thing. It looks like 9 is the middle. So we choose 9 as the pivot. And then I, J. I is pointing 4. J is pointing 7. J stops. We can see J stop immediately because 7 is not greater than 9. It's not greater than the pivot. 4. Okay, 4 is less. 6. 6 is less than 9. Okay, now I is at the pivot. So now we have that same problem again. So now we're just switching the pivot. So, okay, I'm going to switch 7 first. Switch 7 and 9. So now the pivot stays with 9 because we don't change pivot. I is now pointing to 7. I is pointing to 7. J is now at the pivot, so J stops. Yeah, so 7 is less than 9. Yes. 2 is less than 9. So now we have this position again. I, J, and pivot. So 9 is locked in. So we just move 9 up. And now we have 2 array. Which is, one array is 9, 10, jack, queen. The other array is 4, 6, 7, 2. So now we basically do it again. Okay, I'll pick 6 this time. It doesn't really matter. I, J. J stops, we could see, because 2 is less than the pivot 6. 2 is less than pivot 6. Yeah, that's right. I is at 4. 4 is less than, so we're good there. Put it here. Oh, look. I stops because it's at the pivot. And now J. We have to switch them. So now J is at the pivot. And now I is pointing to 2. Okay, I is less than 7. Problem. We have to switch them again because 7 is greater than 6. So we have to switch these cards again. So now I is pointing to 6. I is at the pivot and J is at 7. So yeah, 7 is greater. J moves here. So now 6 is locked in. We just push 6 up. Now there's an element missing, we can see. And now I'm going to just do, now we have 3 arrays. 6, 9, 10, jack, queen in one array. 4, 2 in one array. And 7 in the other. So now since 7 is this own array, there's only one element in that array. We know that's sorted because we only have one choice for IJ and the pivot. So we just push 7 up because 7 was right here when we locked in 6. 7 was greater than 6. So now, okay, we end. I just pick 4 as my pivot. Now I have to choose 4. And J. Well, J is not greater than 4, so we just switch. Now I is pointing to 2, and J is at the pivot with 4. Now, okay, yeah, 4 is greater, so this checks out. Oh, I is less than pivot, so this checks out. I goes here. 4 locks in right here. 4, 6, 7. And now 2, we have 2 array, which is this array, and our lone 2. And 2, because it's lone, pivot J, I. We're good. It locks in. Locks in here. So yeah, I might be speaking very fast. I'm sorry for that. My phone is running out of memory. So you might want to review this. You might want to like review this, and yeah. So that's the basics of Quicksort, and you might want to review this video like not multiple times, but like as much time as you need it. So this is the basics of Quicksort, and yeah, and thank you for sticking with me all the way through as we sort through this sorted array. So now this is sorted 2, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10, Jack, Queen. So yeah, it's sorted. Alright, guys, thank you very much and have a great day. And this is the basics of Quicksort. So yeah, thank you.